Hi, class. Welcome to week 7. So, we're almost there. If you're like me, you might be needing this about now. What we're going to be doing this week is talking about point of view, but I wanted to kind of roll it back a little bit and talk a little bit about setting and maybe how the two kind of interact together. One of the things I hope you can start to see is that these terms that we're learning week by week aren't necessarily just in a vacuum. That when we talk about setting or tone or any one of these terms that we've gone over in the class, it doesn't, theme doesn't just apply to maybe one week, but we can kind of see it building. And I've noticed on the discussion boards, a lot of you have been pointing that out as well. And I think that's great. And so, in order to kind of help facilitate that, I wanted to talk a little bit about setting and how I think it connects to point of view. So, let's go back to the sample thesis when we went over our setting in terms of the essay. And so, if you remember, we used Star Wars as the example for how setting impacts the story, right? And so, one of the things we could think about is, setting. Obviously, going back to our definitions, gotta get those. Make sure I get the right definitions for y'all. One of the things we can think about is, it's the time and place. In the Star Wars example, it's a long time ago, in a galaxy far away. But it's just more than that. Not just the location or the time, but also like the other stuff that's going around, like this galactic civil war, things of that nature. And so, one of the things that when we think about setting is it not only impacts the plot of a particular story, but it impacts the characters' perception of the world around them, right? And so, I think that has a lot to do with point of view. In this week, we're going to be seeing a lot of first person point of views. And so, first person, and if I've ever mentioned that in your essay, is basically when you use I, right? I believe this, right? And so, this is writing in the first person where you're telling us something in this first person point of view. And so, in the first person point of view, your point of view about the world really kind of shines through because we can see it's directly coming through you. Whereas when we look at something maybe like second or third person, the author's point of view or the character's point of view might become a little bit more muddled. I don't think necessarily all the time, but it definitely can be. And so if we look at the stories we're looking at, Tan, especially she's telling it through this first person point of view so that we get to sort of really see her perspective on things, and it's told in this first person point of view. And so that's something to think about. And when we think about setting, where she comes from, her background, where this takes place, who her family was, all these things about the setting, I think, impact or influence her point of view, right? That's, again, going back to Star Wars. Like, if you look at someone like this guy, and if you saw the new Solo movie, kind of growing up in this era of galactic war, so to speak, being a smuggler, thinking, everything is luck and magic tricks, versus someone like Obi-Wan who, is coming from this sort of faith-based thing.
In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
There you go. I was trying to time that drop correctly. But, he's looking at it through this faith thing where everything is, for a reason. And he's coming at it from that point of view. And so when we're looking at the point of views this week, it's really kind of like trying to see where this person is coming from. And so that's what I would try to do is look at someone like Tan or Dickinson and be like, when are they living? What's their setting like? What do I think? How does that impact how they see the world or their topic even or the themes that they're trying to mention? So that's where we get into the essay. It says, choose any of the short stories and rewrite 3 or more pages from a different perspective. I would go back to maybe like that Star Wars scene, and obviously you can't do that here because it's not part of the stories. But if you looked at, any part of Star Wars and wrote it from Han's perspective, it might be totally different because, the point of view that we're given in the film is very sort of sympathetic to the Force, and that the Force is like this correct ancient religion. It's not an ancient religion, it's kind of here now. Another way to kind of rethink the position is like, what if, you told the story of Star Wars through that of a stormtrooper, right? You're just enlisting in this sort of army. You might not believe in it totally, and then you're kind of stuck guarding this giant space station or something. And so, in order to kind of do the assignment or do the discussion, one of the things I think you can really just kind of go back to is, what are these characters' perspectives of the world, and maybe how has the setting that they grew up in or lived in or are living in or their current conditions impact their perspectives on the world. And I think that will really help you, go back and rewrite this particular scene wherever you look at it. So again, like going back to the Cinderella example, I'm sure that the stepsisters feel as if they are the heroes of that story. And personally speaking, just as a side note, every villain who's a good villain, I feel like they need to believe that they are the hero of their own story. And so that what they are doing is the right thing. That's what makes Darth Vader a compelling villain, or even the stepsisters compelling villains, you can argue, is because they believe that what they are doing is the right thing. And so by telling it through their perspective, it might help you kind of see, the other side to the situations. So especially in something that's told in the first person point of view, remember, we're getting a very sort of biased perspective of this person's life, right? And so if you're going to rewrite something like Tan's work, you're going to have to look at other people within this world and see how they might share the same setting but have totally different perspectives on what's going on. And so, in order to kind of help you rewrite the scene, one of the things I would kind of go back to first is setting, and looking at the setting, and then going back to the other characters and seeing how and why you think they are acting the ways that they're doing. One last thing, because this is the only announcement this week, I just want to say for the discussion boards, make sure that we get those in by Wednesday. I think there's a little confusion over that last week, and so just as a reminder, unless there's a specific instruction saying not to, that those should be published on Wednesday before midnight Eastern Standard Time. In this one, I would really encourage you to kind of look backwards and forwards in terms of your own progress in the class, right? And if you want to kind of look at point of view maybe in this in terms of what you felt in the beginning versus the end or nearing the end, I think that might be useful too. Anyway, thank you again, as always, for listening. If there's anything I could do to help you, there's still time to do well in this class. So please email me. I'm going to be reaching out to most of you just to try to double check to see if there's anything I can do. Other than that, have a great week and have fun with this point of view. And I think this will be a good sort of segue into our last week in the class next week. All right, have a great week. Bye.